4, 3.
Nobody protects you from mayhem in Missouri like Allstate. I'm a broken traffic light. Stop and go is the name of my game.
Welcome, folks. We're going to let folks file in. Thank you. Welcome.
Keep on running, cause the winner don't quit on themselves. I'ma wade through the waters till the tide don't move. I'ma riot through your borders. Call me bulletproof. Lord, forgive me, I've been running blind in truth. I'ma wade through your shallow love till the deep I knew. I'm telling these tears go and fall away, fall away. Oh, may the last one burn into flames. Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running, 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Ten Hail Marys, I meditate for practice. Channel 9 News tell me I'm moving backwards. 8 blacks left, death is around the corner. 7 misleading statements by my persona. 6 headlights waving in my direction. Come on. 5-0 asking me what's in my possession. Yeah, I keep running, jumping the aqueducts, fire hydrants and hazardous smoke alarms on the back of us. But mama, don't cry for me, ride for me, try for me, live for me, breathe for me, sing for me. Honestly, guiding me, I can be more than I gotta be. Stole from me, lied to me, nation hypocrisy, code on me, driving me wicked. My spirit inspired me like, yeah. Open correctional gates in high desert. Yeah. Open our mind as we cast away oppression. Open the streets and watch our beliefs. And when they carve my name inside the concrete, I pray it forever reads.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. I need freedom too. I break chains all by myself. Won't let my freedom rot in hell. Hey, I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
What you want from me? Is it true? You see, I'd rather get in there. What you want from me? Is it true? You see, I'd rather get in there. In there.
I had my ups and downs, but I always find the inner strength to pull myself up. I would serve lemons, but I made lemonade.
Yeah, yeah, Starboy day for you. Starboy day for you. Baby girl, you find yourself oh. Girl, you make my head red oh. Anytime you know they close to me, yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby girl, now you I want oh. Baby, shey na me you want to. Make we dey 1 + 1 or 2. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 1 liter, oh, say 1 liter. 1 liter, oh, say 1 yacha. 1 liter, oh, say 1 liter. It be only you be my desire, oh. 1 liter, oh, say 1 liter. 1 liter, oh, say 1 yacha. 1 liter, oh, say 1 liter. Only your water be burn my fire, oh. Yeah, yeah, Starboy day for you. Starboy day for you. Everywhere you go, baby girl, you be my handbag. Gone are the days when me and you just stand for. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Making it right, make it just the stand for it, though. So good. Open up my mind, and I only you did my mind, though. Yeah. Baby girl, you find yourself, though. Girl, you make my head red, though. Anytime you know they close to me, yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby girl, now you I want, though. Baby, shey na me you want, though. Make we dey 1 + 1 or 2, yeah, yeah, yeah. 1 liter, oh, say 1 liter. 1 liter, oh, say 1 yacha. 1 liter, oh, say 1 liter. It be only you be my desire, oh. 1 liter, oh, say 1 liter.
Welcome, everyone, to the Black Feminist Sociology book launch. We are so excited to have you here with us virtually to help us celebrate the launch of this amazing book, if I do say so myself. I am Zakiya Luna. I am one of the co-editors with Dr. Whitney Pirtle, who you should be able to see on screen as well. And before we go much further, I want to acknowledge we are on the land of many people, but including the Osage Nation. And because I'm here in Missouri, there are multiple groups. And we encourage you to actually put in the chat where you are Zooming from. And you will notice something quite amazing, which is that the BFS team, minus our digital editor, is actually all on the same space. Some of them actually meeting each other in person for the first time. So this is a momentous occasion in so many ways for us. And we just want to thank you so much for being here. It's a little surreal. You're going to get to hear a little bit from different members of the team. Professor Pirtle. And then we have 3 esteemed authors who are going to tell you a little bit about their chapters in this text, which is available now from Routledge Press. And it's hard to put into words what this project has meant to me. And I will probably cry at some point, but it has been a life-giving project to be part of, to help conceptualize, to see the response, to see the support. Many of you who are in the chat are folks who encouraged us along the way, the folks on social media, just so many people. And there was a thanks slide. Want to give thanks to our editor of the Sociology Rewired series, Jody O'Brien, the social science editor overall, Dean Berkenkamp, and Marcus Anthony Hunter is also co-editor of the Sociology Rewired series. And we talk about this a little in the intro. The idea for this came from various places, but the initial conversations actually happened at the Association of Black Sociologists meeting in Philadelphia in 2018. The New Black Sociologist had just come out, and it was such a wonderful text. And I remember thinking, like, this is so amazing. And yet also, like, what about a Black feminist sociology guide? Kind of like in Black feminist anthropology, there's a volume that was published 20 years ago. And I thought, you know what, like, there would be some amazing people, I'm sure, who would be interested in this. I wasn't sure who the we was, but there was a dinner happening that night of a whole bunch of Black women who were on the tenure track in sociology, which is a longer sort of story. But I brought up the idea, and one person was like, I'd be really into that. In a real way, like, everyone was into it, but as far as like, we'd be interested in maybe like doing, you know, some labor and thinking through and putting together a proposal. And that was Whitney Pirtle, who I met that night. That was the first time we met on our way to dinner. And it is very unusual to be able to meet someone and in 3 weeks' time put together a proposal for a series. And that was with the support of Zandria Robinson, the ABS president at the time, and Marcus Anthony Hunter, and the encouragement of Jody O'Brien. And we went from there. And it has been an amazing experience. And it's been wonderful to be able to work with our editorial assistants, Yasmin Kellikay and Tashelle Wright, and then get the insights of Dr. Melissa Brown, who has helped us move this into the digital age. And we have some other things we'll talk about at the end in relation to that. But it's just amazing to be here, and thank you all so much. I'm gonna let Whitney say a bit, and then we're gonna move on to each of our presenters. And as we're going, if you wanna throw some questions into the chat, you're welcome to. Can't promise we'll get to them right now, but maybe on the website later. Okay, Whitney, take it away.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a quick moment to thank every single person who is here. This book has reiterated to me, as I've talked about in personal conversations and on social media, the power of community. And not only do we have like 20 plus authors who wrote their hearts out in this book, but we have mentors and mothers and sisters and ancestors that we don't even know who have poured life into us and this book. And so it has just been this amazing journey that I honestly would have never imagined 10 years ago early on in my graduate career, only reading like one Black feminist text and the assigned courses. The fact that we are here now is like mind-blowing, somewhat frustrating, right? This should have happened early on, but the fact that I can be a part of it through being in community with all of you has just like meant so much for my career and who I am and where I want to see Black feminist sociology going. So I just want to share that. I'm also, like, you can hear my voice, I'm emotional. It's just wonderful to put our hands on this book. So thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, we're just, no, I'm not gonna apologize, actually, for being on the verge of tears. This has been an amazing project, and it's also, again, amazing, like Whitney's in the other room. We haven't seen each other in a while, and our editorial assistants we haven't seen in multiple years. And they've come internationally to be with us. So the book is divided into 5 parts, and we start with some key foundations. We had come up with a list that was sort of like a dream team in our minds. And the amazing thing about it is that we emailed each of them and said, hey, we are going to be pitching a Black feminist sociology edited volume. And while the bulk of it will be from an open call, we would love to have your insights as guiding lights, founder, I mean, all of it, on Black feminist sociology. And they were all like, yeah. Like, what? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ginger. Sorry, I'm like reading the chat. And we are so excited to have Dr. Rose Brewer with us, who wrote a critical piece and has written pieces since then, that came out in '89, really talking about the Black feminist sociological intelligentsia and the frameworks and the critical frameworks that were being offered. And one of the people who contributed to that first part, and she's going to talk a little bit about what the inspiration was for her chapter. Dr. Brewer.
Thank you so much. And what an evening. The beauty of the book launch and deep appreciation to all who have made this possible, especially Professors Luna and Purtle. And thank you for giving me a holla. Much appreciation for that. Certainly the contributors need much honor. And all of you who decided to join this conversation this evening, it is really quite exciting. So thank you. Let me open my remarks with reflection on why I have been so moved by this project. Writing Black feminist sociology into the discipline is vital. It's an imperative. While sometimes referenced in research and teaching, Black feminist sociology being named precisely in the history of the field shifts the discourse from an unmediated feminist sociology, which is still too common. So there's no doubt in my mind that this volume clarifies the meanings, research, and practice of a Black feminist sociology. And I've had the honor of listening on more than one occasion to the presenters and having my mind blown about this new generation who is going to do some incredible work, already doing incredible work. And I am so convinced that the sociological lens not only has shifted, but will shift even further into the 21st century, given the work that is underway. And whether these contributions are named or not, they are having an impact. And emancipatory sociology, I assert, must be crafted in the context of a Black feminist praxis. And that really is the foundational assertion of my chapter. I caught a glimpse of the possibilities such a praxis might hold in my 1989 article. It's been quite a while ago. Black Women and Feminist Sociology, the Emerging Perspective. Today, confronted with a vicious white nationalist response in the US, deep dispossession across the board, the promise of Black feminist sociological logic in resisting domination is an urgency. Let me share a couple of takeaways. We don't have a lot of time, and as always, I've gotten too much to say with too little time to say it. But first, my chapter does draw upon the critical Marxist insight that ideas bear an important relationship to interest. Indeed, so long as conflict of interest exists, knowledge will remain affected and distorted. Critical thinkers such as W.B. Du Bois, C. Wright Mills further articulated the idea that intellectuals have a political and moral imperative, so values are inevitable. This contention that values and interests are implicit in the evolution of sociological knowledge underpins the Black feminist critique of the field. What traditional critical sociologists did not interrogate was how racism and sexism simultaneously articulate knowledge production. The erasure of women's knowledges runs through sociological thought. This absence anchored my discussion in '89 of what I call the fourth critique of the field in a section focused on Black feminism and the intersection of race, class, and gender. Here, this reworking of mainstream sociological thought was at the heart of the new Black feminist sociology. Indeed, by the time the 1989 article was written, it was increasingly apparent that the Eurocentric critical sociological tradition was theoretically distorting, given the missing race, class, and gender dialectic. It was evident that Black uprisings over the previous decade, the call to decolonize sociological knowledge and to end white sociology, a la Joyce Ladner in her 1972 volume, The Death of White Sociology, were core to pressing for change in the field. Sociology was being challenged, and it was not surprising that the critical sociologists noted in the '89 article could be interrogated through a Black feminist sociology. And of course, the rest, as they say, is history. I do like to cite from that period a quote from Kenneth Clark, who in fact was a Black psychologist, but so on in terms of the frame that the volume is situated in. And Clark states, "The tombs collect dust from Johnson to Moynihan to the Kerner Commission. The solution is the creation of committed scholars of color who develop emancipatory paradigms." Hear, hear. Of course, this demands not only a race perspective, but a multiplicity of interrogations: gender, race, class, ethnicity, disability, all of which are found in the volume. The emergent Black feminist sociology rearticulated knowing rooted in the knowledges of Black women. This thought pioneered in the analyses of sociologists such as Deal, Rogers Rose, Collins, and Black writers such as Alice Walker, Toni Cade Bambara. They were crafting the frame, influencing Black feminist thinking generally. Secondly, when all is said and done, it was the political economic underpinnings of Black women's lives that have deeply captured my radical Black feminist sociological imagination. And that goes to the heart of the writings that I engaged in this chapter. When I use the term radical Black feminist sociology, I lift up the transformational component of its logic, given racial capitalism. COVID-19, the internationalization of the labor force, the roboticizing and computerizing of this society have profound consequences for Black lives. Indeed, fewer and fewer African Americans are needed for the everyday operation of this system, given the US political economy and racism. Moreover, what emerges under current conditions of state and economic restructuring is a complicated positioning of the Black population. Racial rigidities in the broader body politic are cross-cut by changing and more complex internal class relations. These internal and external shifts are reflective of changes in the society and globally, a complicated conjuncture for Black life in the US and beyond. Let me just say a couple of more things, and as I noted, I could probably go on for a while, but I guess I would just close up by saying that in the analysis that many of the authors engage in, Black women are made visible and epistemologically robust. Labor is not simply at the point of production or wage question, but the expropriation of Black women's racialized, reproductive, and productive lives, being culture and creativity. So I guess I would just close out with another insight, not necessarily by a Black feminist, but certainly by a radical thinker. And some of you may be aware of the tremendous work of James Banks and his assertion, which is, I think, the energy that catalyzed my response in this volume, asserts, although the issue of moral and social commitment are not uniquely Black intellectual issues, the special and complex problems that being Black and intellectual entail present a forceful and continuing challenge to the sociology of higher education, and I would say the sociology of Black feminist thought. Thus, social transformation is a deep process of praxis. The struggle must be at the core of our theory and practice. This is at the heart of the radical Black feminist sociological project. This is at the heart of my involvement. Thank you.
You see why we love working on this project. You hear why. I mean, like people's word, even in 10 minutes, it's just, oh, okay. Next we have Dr. Asada Richards of the Sankofa Institute.
Good afternoon. Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you to the editors of this volume, and I also want to be in gratitude to all of the writers in this volume, and thank you for the labor and the commitment to see it from start to finish. I also want to start in a tradition that is a part of my cultural practice, which is a libation. And I won't be doing a traditional libation, but a libation is always honoring those who've come before you. And I think that and I think it's ironic and it's profound that this writing, this volume was finished during the COVID pandemic and during a state of crisis in the world, but definitely a crisis that disproportionately, like it always does, was visited on people of African descent. And so I'm reminded and thinking about what my goal or what my inspiration. I remember being in middle school in East Texas, where I was raised by my grandparents, and being one of very few Black students in a very segregated and a very racially hostile and brutal environment. And I remember stumbling on the writings of Margaret Walker, Jubilee to be one, but definitely the poem For My People. And I memorized that poem and I kept it in my heart from middle school into this day. And when I work and I think about my journey as a scholar, as a Black feminist sociologist, as a public sociologist, I remember a verse where she said, for my people, for the cramped, bewildered years we went to school to learn to know the reasons why and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when, in memory of the bitter hours when we discovered we were Black and poor and small and different, and nobody cared, nobody wondered, and nobody understood. And so for me, since that day, I've been on a journey to understand the conditions, the root, the reasons, the causes for the long historic suffering and oppression of people of African descent. And so for me, this being a part of this, I must first really acknowledge Professor Ruby Mendenhall, who on a simple day said, you have to submit something. You have to find some space and capacity within yourself to write. You must insert yourself back into writing and literature, and you must find your voice, not just produce and do and deliver, but you must find a space for yourself. And so for me, my chapter is really a processing of trauma, if I'm honest. And I heard to say about, the emotionality that this work brings. And I think for me, I went to graduate school as a single mother. I went to Penn State University in central Pennsylvania. I went to the ends of the earth to get an education in places that were hostile to me. And the suffering in which I incurred and the trauma in which we all incur is never quite processed. It's never quite made understood to me and to others. And so part of this was processing the experiences, the numerous uncountable losses that it took for me to get that PhD, and then to join a tenure track, a university as a tenure track professor, and then the decision to leave that institution. And I think for me, it was an understanding that Black feminist sociology doesn't belong to an institution. It doesn't belong to anybody. It belongs to the collective body of Black women, women of African descent and of Black people. And so for me, it was to make myself visible, to declare that I was present and that my sociology didn't stop when I left that institution. My work as a sociologist in real terms really began when I separated, and that the work that we do, wherever we do it, does not belong to any institutions, but it belongs to our people. And so my inspiration was to be part of a community, was to find my way back to academia on my own terms, to reinsert myself into this work. And so for me, the chapter is really about grappling with new tools. I often use the quote from Audre Lorde that the master's tools will not dismantle the master's house. And if there is a lot of good work happening, and I still work very closely with academics, and good work is happening, but old tools are being used to do good work. And I'm often challenged to say that traditional research has no place in the type of social change we're seeking to bring about. Traditional research based on power over and hierarchy cannot create liberation. It cannot. It only imprisons us. And so my chapter was a discovery, was an uncovering. And to my confusion, when I found community-based participatory research, I didn't find it from sociologists. And I thought I would, right? Because it challenges race, class, gender. It challenges power and domination over. And it proposes for work to be done, that we must be in collaboration with those we research. It proposes that research is not a destination, but it's a process. It proposes that those who are privileged to have resources should be shifting those resources to those most in need and not protecting them at institutions, right? And so it challenges all of the places in which I was wounded, and I watched countless other people be wounded in institutions. And so my chapter is really a accounting of how do we where we are, not just produce knowledge about liberation, but how do we create a pathway and a practice of producing knowledge that is liberating? Because to sustain ourselves in this system, in this society, we must practice ways that build relationship and honor our humanity. And so for me, I was attempting to clarify, to name, to affirm, and to commit myself to a new paradigm of research at a time when new paradigms are needed. New paradigms are needed, right? This system is showing its fault lines. And if we are not prepared to move beyond studying problems as sociologists, we will have no place in the new dawn of the new day. Studying problems is no longer sufficient. Studying problems make us celebrities, but finding solutions make us participants in the liberation of our people. And so for me, my chapter was about writing a new chapter of my own life as a public sociologist and given a paradigm to say, not you should use community-based participatory research, but you should be thinking about how you are creating knowledge. And you should ask yourself, what are the values and the principles that underline the production of that knowledge? And if they align with the principles of Black feminism, and if they do not, then we have a responsibility to find a new set of tools. And so in closing, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be welcomed into this holy circle with you scholars. I'm grateful for you have labored with me, were patient with me, throughout this process of getting my chapter finished. I am grateful for you for having a vision and preparing a place for me that I did not know I was going to arrive into. And so I'm grateful to all of you for holding space for Black people, for Black women, and for those who are seeking liberation. Thank you.
Oh, someone put in the chat, preach. Woo, it's not Sunday today. Okay. Last but not least, we have our chapter contributor, Blue Buchanan, who is in the last section of the text, which is about really thinking about the future of Black feminist sociology, right? There's so many possible directions, and we wanted to make sure, actually, in creating the whole volume, we wanted to have it be intergenerational, but particularly in the last section, you will see many, not even emerging scholars, because there already are, they're already doing amazing work in a range of places. So without further ado, Blue Buchanan, it is your floor.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, first of all, I'm still processing stuff that Dr. Brewer and that Dr. Richards laid down. So I'm just I'm a little bit in my feelings. I want to start off with the sort of quote, the discussion that we began our chapter. I'm representing myself and another co-author in this writing process. And the quote is from an interview with Juliana Huxtable, a Black trans woman and artist and creative. And this interviewer says, "What's the nastiest shade you've ever thrown?" And Juliana Huxtable says, "Existing in the world." And it's that orientation that really began my co-author and I's process of participating in this volume. We saw the open call, and honestly, something that I've been reflecting on quite a bit has been that our orientation, our beginning with this project was actually one of anger and of hurt and of feeling excluded. And it's from that place of sort of beautiful and loving anger that we began our conversation about incorporating Black trans women and femmes into the conversation about Black feminism. Our chapter is titled We Major, Black Trans Feminism Fights Back. And by and large, what it aims to do is to make a few key interventions. The first of which is to really put Black feminism in conversation with and recognize the deeply trans roots of Black feminism itself. So part of what we really wanted to do was to challenge the sort of cis normativity that is often a part of social movements, a part of our traditions, even when we fight to make space, oftentimes we leave people out. And one of the first things that we tried to do was identify that Black womanhood and Black gender subjectivity is already in such an unstable place. And in fact, that place of instability is not a weakness, but rather it's a strength that we can operate from in order to build a Black feminism that really puts gender autonomy at the center of the conversation. And so I want to stress that because while Black feminism has this foundational connection to a disruption of the gender binary, sometimes when we've made claims, sometimes when we've articulated Black feminism writ large, it still tends to focus on things like bodily sex in order to talk about femininity, to talk about masculinity, to talk about gender. And so our chapter really tries to move away from this understanding of Black feminism and towards a Black feminism that takes trans experiences and the experiences of Black trans elders in particular, folks like Miss Major, folks like Marsha P. Johnson, into account when talking about what a Black feminism demands of sociology. And I want to echo something that I heard both from Dr. Richards and from Dr. Brewer about the importance of a Black feminist sociology being one of action, because that's one of the key sort of asks of our chapter, is not simply that we understand the world through a Black trans feminist lens, but that we act in Black trans feminist ways, right? Ways that center the material, the social, and the lived realities of Black trans folks, and particularly Black trans women. And one of the things that this chapter also aims to do is to move away from a Black feminism and a focus on Black trans women and femmes in particular only when they die. And so this chapter was also an affirmation of life, an affirmation that we can build theory and organizing and community from a place that takes seriously the lives and not just the deaths of Black trans folks. When we talk about the sort of racial capitalism and the abjection that Black trans folks in particular experience, the erasure of Black trans women and femmes experience from the conversation, too often the only time that we become visible is in our pain. And so this particular chapter really tries to center the fact that we are building lives, and as we build lives, we are offering up something that others can practice, right? That we are building an orientation of liberation outside of the academy. And so really, in some ways, part of what we're hoping to do is say like, hey, academy, there is this amazing, beautiful, really rich set of traditions that people aren't even talking about. And to be honest, part of our chapter sort of says, yes, there's these beautiful, amazing traditions. And then it ends by saying you can only join us in these traditions by taking seriously the interventions that we lay out. One of those being reparations, another being a serious consideration of abjection. So all of the things that we cannot say, the things we cannot study, for example, the lives of gender expansive folks during slavery, like that is there, we're not going to find records, right? This is where folks like Sadia Hartman's work on critical fabulations, right? Taking those things seriously changes the way we would do sociology. And of course, in a time where oftentimes we're discussing abolition, the other contribution that we make is the idea that if we that we have to take seriously the abolition of sociology itself. And I know that seems a little weird in a book on sociology, right? But the idea here is that what we call sociology now is inimical to. It is the antithesis of what it means to live justly and to produce knowledge together. And that if we want to understand what it means to throw the nastiest shade in the world through existing, that study is going to be something that we wouldn't call sociology, right? And that doesn't mean that it's not sociology. It means that it would go through a process of transformation. And so our chapter really asks or takes seriously both the anger and the joy of abolition, right? We came to this conversation hurt. I think both of us as authors, when we submitted this chapter, were like, we're probably not going to get accepted into this volume. Nobody has ever really talked about the overlapping like conversations here. Everyone thinks that trans stuff is white stuff and that like it's like off to this other conversation. And so I'd say we went in a little combative, but in a way that I think was really from a place of real knowledge about our own experiences. And I just want to say that one of the beautiful things that I loved about being a part and love about being part of this community is that the modeling that we've had from editors, from organizers of the volume about how to hold each other also in our hurt, right? And to hold often, sometimes conversations which are at odds in the same volume, right? And owning and honoring that multiplicity, I think, is incredibly powerful and incredibly important, especially just because, got to give a shout out to Audre Lorde, talking about the importance of organizing through difference. It's not about erasing the difference between Black feminists. It's about honoring and making use of everything that we can, all of these positions, in order to understand the world and sometimes, dare I say, drag it to a place of justice and care. I want to end with the words of Miss Major from our chapter. And I think that this speaks to a Black trans feminist position. She says, "You don't have to watch everybody, but love them and give them the space that they need. That doesn't mean hugging and smooching on them and holding them close. It means caring about what their existence is, helping as needed, but leaving the room and the ability to grow or not grow, expand or not on their own as they choose. And I want folks to take that energy, that perspective that Miss Major is giving, and really recognize that is a place where we can finally begin to organize from difference together, and where we can really be building the bridges across the conversations that Dr. Brewer, Dr. Richards, myself, and many of the folks, right, all of these beautiful chapters are laying out for us. Anyways, thank you so much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be in conversation with everyone.
Oh, we loved your submission from the beginning. We're like, oh yes. Some people are gonna be upset when they read this. We love it. Not us, but we love it. Thank you so much, Blue. Oh, okay. Blue, you mentioned how in the volume there are chapters that at points like contradict each other, it seems like, right? And I also want to acknowledge that that is something that we had two senior faculty. I say that because when Whitney and I started, we were both junior as an untenured faculty. When the project started in 2018, I have since gotten tenure, and we both have like endowed chairs now. I mean, it's been a process, but I will say one thing that was really interesting in the beginning, in talking about like putting together the volume, we were like, oh, well, we need a more senior person to join as a co-editor. And we asked a couple people and they were like, thank you, but no, y'all got this. And then Jody O'Brien also was like, we were worried, like, these people said no. And she's like, you've got this. And we're like, okay, we've got this. But two of the people, they said, we're not going to join you as official co-editors, but we would be happy to help you later in the process after you have narrowed down, if you're having trouble deciding between the submissions after you've narrowed. And we had no idea when we sent out the call that we would get so many responses. We had over 80, and then there were more coming in after the deadline. So it was quite a process for us to review, and we described the process more in the book, actually, how we did it, sort of assigning letters to the submissions and reviewing them, and then, so we didn't know who was submitting things, actually. Once we had narrowed down to another set, we had two amazing scholars who had both, again, volunteered to help us further and think about, decide between some pieces, but then also think about any gaps. And I do want to give amazing thanks to Professor Joyce Bell and Professor Nikki Jones. And they are such amazing mentors and scholars. And after we had made our final selections, we let the folks who we were inviting to write a full chapter to contribute to the volume know. And one of them emailed back and said, oh, thank goodness you didn't tell us that they were going to be part of the review process, because I would have been too intimidated to submit. That's how esteemed they are. So just wanted to give thanks to them as well. We are in our last few minutes. We want to make space for our two editorial assistants if they wanted to say anything. The task of reviewing from an open call is quite expansive, but Whitney and I also had a vision that we wanted it to be a process that could involve mentoring around doing things like created and edited volume, even though we were learning as we went. To be honest. And we were so excited when these students responded to our call for editorial assistance at UC Santa Barbara, Yasmin Kelakai, and at UC Merced, Tashelle Wright, both of whom are finishing up their dissertations. And actually, Tashelle Wright, this is Tashelle's first day as a postdoc at University of Toronto, just saying. Yeah. But we wanted to make space for them, and you also get an opportunity to read some of their reflections in the text as well. So I will give the floor to Yasmin.
Thank you. Wow, I don't even know what to say after all the amazing, amazing people who have spoken, all the amazing things that have been said. But I just want to say thank you to Dr. Pirtle and Dr. Luna for including us in this process, for really being dedicated to ensuring that Black feminists, like Praxis, was part of the process in and of itself. It was incredible to witness that and to learn from you in your transparency, vulnerability, strength, and how you guided us through this process and supported each other. I mean, you two were new to each other as well, right? So we all kind of came to this and got to learn together, and that's been incredible. And I think, you know, for us, I'll speak for myself, but, you know, being in graduate school, which, as you all know, is not, is very hostile to Black women. It was just so incredible to be able to be part of this process and to get to take part of all of the submissions, all of the contributors' works, and the mentorship involved in this process, because I think that's been something that has tremendously influenced my pathway, my own scholarship, my own political praxis through my research. And that's something I take with me and that I'll cherish forever. So I really just appreciate this opportunity and so humbled to have gotten to be part of this.
Well, I just also wanted to say how honored I am to be part of this project. I am technically, can you hear me? Oh, okay. I am technically a public health, whatever that means, right? But I am so blessed to be part of this. I feel like it's given me, honestly, a reason and a space to feel good about being Black in the academy. I'm beyond thankful for my favorite mentor at UC Merced. I'm just going to say it, Dr. Pirtle. And it's been an honor to work with Dr. Luna and learn from them and learn what it's like to really honor Blackness. And I feel like I've grown so much and feel so excited to stay in these sort of spaces. And it's been beautiful to read all of your work. I was so excited about my book. I put it in the back, but it's just, I just am so beyond just grateful and emotional too. I'm always emotional, but this has been very needed. There's days I'm like, oh, this isn't meant for me. I'm ready to give up. And then I'll just get a nice message from Dr. Pirtle, or I'll see some of you guys post your work on Twitter. And I'm like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. And just congratulations to you all. And just really excited to continue on with Black feminist sociology.
And we're excited to have you continue on with us. So our digital editor, Dr. Melissa Brown, is going to say a little bit about some of the things that are coming up on the Black Feminist Sociology website. Dr. Brown, your turn.
Finally let me unmute. Okay. So thank you everyone for being here today. I'm Dr. Brown. I am based in Santa Clara University. And I actually don't quite remember what I was doing when I joined the digital editor team. I think I had just transitioned into my postdoc. And the way I became part of the team was I submitted a chapter to the call for proposals, and my chapter is called For Black Feminist Digital Sociology. And I saw in the call there was also a request to have a digital editor, and I was like, obviously that's me, you know. So I replied back to Whitney and Zakiya. I was like, I would be glad to do it, and I'm so appreciative of the ways that they really kind of let me take the lead on what that digital arm looked like. So in addition to having social media pages on Facebook and Twitter as a person interested in digital technology and media and the ways that it can empower people, particularly marginalized people, to have their voices amplified, I also insisted that we had a website. And part of the reason why I insisted that we have a website is because of my own experience of maintaining a website. So my personal blog is blackfeminisms.com. And initially, the way that that blog was born was I realized that I was writing all these notes for my comprehensive exams that nobody was going to see. So I figured instead of just throwing them in a drawer or shredding them or whatever, I would let them live on the internet. And on the internet, they took on a life of their own. And so originally, like my first year, probably like 1,000 people read the blog in a year. And now the blog gets about 10,000 views per month. And this is a vision that I have for Black feminist sociology as well. But the project of Black feminist sociology will be much more collaborative in that, like Dr. Lena mentioned, there were so many people who submitted to this call. We realized that we have way more Black feminist sociological voices that we need to amplify, not just within the academy, but outside the academy as well. And the digital sphere is an excellent place to do that. So one of the things that we can do, for example, I believe Dr. Pearl dropped in the chat, that you can meet the authors of the volume on our website currently. You can be up to date about what types of events that they're involved in, and then whenever we record them, you can go there and review them later. So we participated in a symposium a couple months ago that's up there right now. And then we also want to build out the blog space in particular. And I think that this is a thing that can take on a life of its own, provided that all of us participated in together. So one thing we're considering doing is having a blog post submission form. So people who are invested in, for example, you just published a research article, you want people on our listserv to be aware of it, you can submit that to us and we will get it out to our newsletter. We also want to take the time to respond to, there were dozens of questions that you all submitted in the Google form for this event. And so we figured one of the best ways to kind of take on those questions could also be on our blog site as well. Another thing that we would like to do is maybe like once or twice a year, and provided there are certain topics that are pertinent to Black feminist sociology, we'd like to do a type of call for proposals for blog posts and invite you all to kind of sharpen your public scholarship tool. So even though we had Dr. Richards represented here, not all of us are good at the public scholarship thing. And so I think that blackfeministsociology.com is an opportunity for us as Black feminist scholars to really venture into the digital space. And one of the reasons why this is so important is because of the work of people like Sophia Noble talking about the ways that the Black womanhood is constructed on the internet. So for the vast part of history, internet history specifically, if you go on the internet, search things about Black women, search things about Black girls, you're going to find things that are rooted in the controlling images of the Jezebel or the Sapphire and things to that effect. But the power of the internet is that when we contribute our perspectives to those internet, the same search engine that amplifies that negativity can then in turn amplify Black feminist perspectives. So I'd like to invite you all to think about what your work can contribute to the public digital sphere, the ways that it can shape conversations going on online. Black feminism is extremely popular online. Granted, it doesn't have the best reputation, but I think part of that could also be that us as scholars need to once again reach out to the public and use digital media as a tool to do so. So I'm hoping that if you thought, well, I didn't get to be in the volume, is this where it ends for me? No. Blog posts on blackfeminisms.com, let us know what you're working on, let us know when you are giving a talk, let us know when your book just got published, and we'll be sure to use our website to hold space for you. And over time, that's going to continue to grow and get bigger. And we'll be able to use blackfeministsociology.com as a digital virtual encyclopedia of Black feminist thought and sociology. So thank you all.
Yay! We wanted to end with that sort of next steps, because we know people have been asking, as someone put in the Q&A, are you going to do another volume? And while we don't necessarily have plans to do another edited volume anytime soon, we are going to be building out the site. And we just really want to thank all of you for being at this event. Thank you, Jake. Jake is my office neighbor. And also shout out to the Department of Sociology at WashU in St. Louis. When we came in earlier this afternoon, my chair had had brought snacks and coffee for us. And there's, you may have seen a little bag over my shoulder. Someone, brought in this little bubbly for us to celebrate for after this. So thanks for all the love coming from WashU. And I see various UCSB folks on here and folks from so many places. Hey, Genevieve. And again, being part of this experience has been amazing, and it's not done yet. As Dr. Brown just mentioned, there are so many ways to be part of it in the future. And we hope, of course, we hope you will buy the book or encourage your library to buy it. We hope you will, if you want some of your own BFS swag, Yasmin will put the Threadless shop link in the chat again. And you'll also see, follow us on Twitter at BlackFemSoc. And we just want to thank you all for being here and supporting us throughout this process so much. And let us know what you think about the volumes and the chapters. And it has meant so much for us to get it in print form and to work with all these authors. Oh my gosh, Cheryl Townsend, do you see who's in the chat? My gosh, all y'all to see folks just come out. You're just amazing. All the love and support. It's amazing. And with that, we're going to close out the webinar. I want to give all the panelists the opportunity to unmute and give a goodbye or adios or however before I close out the webinar, because it's a rather abrupt ending to the webinar. It's nothing personal, y'all. It's just Zoom will say goodbye to us. So thank you all. And all panelists, unmute yourselves and say goodbye. Oh,
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
Have a great night. Panelists,
Bye.
the other Zoom for a little.
Thank you all so
Right.
much.
Bye.
Big love.
Bye.